Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. Have you ever pondered what secrets lie dormant in the depths of space, waiting to be awakened by the curious and the brave? Let's get into the story. The Seeker drifted along the fringes of Unkan territory, its sensors pinging into the vast, empty reaches of the star system. For a species propelled by the hunger for knowledge and expansion, the quiet sectors were anathema. Yet Captain Zyler knew the importance of routine scans. Anomalies sometimes hid in the most unassuming places. Despite his ingrained pragmatism, the long stretches of void and predictable data could wear on the old captain's patience. "Anything of interest, Navigator Talon?" Zylar's voice crackled over the bridge comms, the hint of boredom barely concealed. "Just the usual debris, Captain," Talon's higher-pitched tone replied. "Remains of asteroid impacts, a few stray comets, nothing substantial." Zylar grunted, a habit honed over decades of voyages that rarely yielded excitement. His species had a lifespan far exceeding many of the races they encountered, which fostered an appreciation for the plodding accumulation of knowledge. Still, the quiet routine could leave even the most patient Unkan longing for a breakthrough. Then, it happened. A faint signal pulsed on the very edge of his ship's sensor range. Talon almost missed it, buried beneath the usual stellar noise. "Wait, Captain," the navigator squeaked. "There's something unusual." The change in Talon's usually measured tone made Zylar sit up straighter. "Elaborate, Talon." Zylar's focus returned with laser-like intensity. Unusual meant possible. Possible meant progress. Progress meant the approval of the Council and more resources for bold exploration. "It's big, sir. Faint signature, but massive. And old." Talon's voice held a hint of awe, replacing the usual scientific detachment. "The energy readings are erratic, Captain. I've never seen readings like this." "Can you identify it?" Zylar's interest was fully piqued. "No, sir. It doesn't match standard vessel designs of any known race. Not even debris looks like this. It's almost organic in its signature, sir." Curiosity battled with caution in Zylar. Such a strange reading deserved investigation, but the unknown also held a hint of danger. Zylar stood, his attention now squarely on the main view screen. "Bring us closer." Cautiously. He wouldn't risk his vessel, but neither could he ignore the potential of something truly unique. As the Seeker edged closer, the object materialized from the depths of space, a monstrous shape resolving from the shadows. Zylar gasped, his scales rippling, a rare sign of agitation amongst the usually stoic Unkan. It was indeed vast, like nothing his crew had ever encountered. It wasn't a debris field, nor a natural celestial body. It appeared as a colossal, twisted hull, its surface a strange patchwork of weathered metal and what looked suspiciously like fossilized bone. "Magnify," Zylar ordered, his eyes narrowed. The enhanced images revealed more unsettling details. Strange protrusions dotted the hull, resembling fossilized limbs fused to the metallic exterior. Sensors revealed a weak but stable internal atmosphere and faint, almost imperceptible energy readings. "Life signs?" The question hung heavy in the bridge's tense atmosphere. "Inconclusive, Captain," Talon answered after a long pause. "There's something residual. Faint biological readings, but dormant." A collective shiver ran down Zylar's spine. Whatever this was, it wasn't something their scientific manuals had prepared them for. "I want a boarding party assembled, scan for entry points, and have our best analysts standing by," Zylar decided. He was a cautious captain by nature, yet the potential for discovery outweighed the risk in this instance. He longed to be the Unkan who cracked this cosmic enigma wide open. It took agonizing hours for the Seeker's scanners to locate an opening. The breach looked more like a wound on the ship's surface than a traditional airlock. Analyzing it revealed a mix of mechanical and biological components, unsettlingly fused at some point in the distant past. "Prep the breach team. Hazard suits mandatory," Zylar commanded. He selected his most experienced crew, a mix of seasoned engineers and seasoned security personnel. They would enter this unknown anomaly armed with cutting tools, sensors, and a healthy dose of wary trepidation. As the boarding party vanished through the bizarre airlock, the remaining Seeker crew settled into a tense waiting game. Zylar paced the bridge, a habit he normally found irritating but now strangely soothing. Talon kept the object locked in the view screen, ready to zoom in on the tiniest change, while a team of analysts frantically tried to make sense of the trickle of data coming back from the object's interior. Inside the vessel, the boarding party found themselves in a scene straight from a nightmare. The corridors were dim and twisted, a labyrinth of metal fused with fossilized things, too large to be bones, yet undeniably skeletal. The hazard suit's lights cast eerie shadows that danced over the grotesque walls, adding to the growing sense of disquiet. "I don't like this," Lieutenant Zira, the team's security chief, hissed over the comms. Her voice was strained despite the suit's filters, hinting at the profound unease rippling through them all. "Focus, Zira. We're not leaving until we have something to report back to Captain Xylar," responded Engineer Chief Zaral, his voice a steady counterpoint to Zira's fear. They pushed deeper into the twisted anatomy of the ship, their scanners pinging erratically in response to the strange mix of readings. Ancient technology hummed beneath layers of alien growth, its purpose long forgotten. It felt like walking through the preserved corpse of some colossal, extinct monster, an idea that made Zaral's scales twitch involuntarily. "Look at this." Zira's voice broke the silence, tense with wonder and a hint of fear. The beam of her suit's light fell upon a vast, dimly lit chamber. Within it stood monstrous pods, like gargantuan eggshells, each large enough to house several Unkan comfortably. They were arranged in ordered rows, numbering in the hundreds, perhaps thousands. Zaral's scientific mind reeled. "Scan them," he urged his team, curiosity battling apprehension. The scanners chirped, their readings making everyone tense. "Biological readings. Strong," one of the technicians gasped. They didn't need to elaborate. The pods hummed with dormant life. Yet, whatever lay within didn't register as any species known to the Unkan. "Captain," Zira spoke into the comms, unable to contain her growing unease any longer. "You need to see this." She patched the live feed from her suit cameras back to the seeker. On the bridge, Xylar swore softly. The sight of the immense pods, each teeming with unknown life, sent a ripple of unease through the usually calm captain. What kind of giants had built this ship, and what had happened to them? "Zaral, be careful," Xylar warned, unable to shake a feeling of impending doom. It was then that it happened. A subtle shift in the ancient ship's energy readings, a flicker of lights along one of the pod-lined corridors. Before they could react, a cascade of systems flickered into sudden, chaotic life. Alarms blared on the seeker, red lights flashing in angry contrast to the usual dim blue of the bridge. "Captain," Talon shouted, his voice edged with panic. "That ship! It's waking up!" Inside the dormant vessel, the changes were more drastic. The walls hummed with renewed power, making the Unkan boarding party's teeth rattle. Dust and debris swirled in microgravity, kicked up by the revitalized systems. Zaral, staring in horrified fascination, noticed cracks spiderwebbing around the nearest pod. "Xylar, we need to get the hell out of..." Zira's transmission cut off in a shriek of static. On the Seeker's bridge, Xylar watched in horror as the feed from Zira's suit glitched and died. "Zira? Zaral? Respond!" he shouted, fear lacing his normally composed tone. Static was the only reply. He turned to Talon, who was frantically trying to re-establish a connection. "It's no use, sir! The ship is jamming our signal!" Talon almost wailed. Then came the first groan, a low, tectonic rumble that started somewhere deep in the bowels of the colossal ship and reverberated through the Seeker itself. Xylar's eyes went wide. If the ship was this noisy, just waking up... "Sensors, what the abyss is happening in there?" he barked. Talon, fingers dancing over the sensor controls, struggled to keep up. "Readings are off the scale, Captain. Massive energy surges and... oh my stars, the pods, they're opening." Back in the pod chamber, chaos erupted. Zaral, his scientific curiosity suddenly overwhelmed by sheer terror, watched as the shells encasing the life form split and peeled back with a sickening organic crunch. Giant figures stirred, slowly unfolding limbs that dwarfed those of any Unkan. He turned to run, blindly firing his energy rifle behind him, desperate to buy even a few precious seconds. The suit's camera caught glimpses of immense shadowed bodies, rising, of eyes blazing open with strange, otherworldly light. A scream, amplified by the comm system, cut through the bridge of the Seeker. Xylar felt his blood run cold. That was Zaral's voice.
"Get us out of here, Talon!" he shouted, his voice cracking slightly. "All engines, full power!" Talon, usually so methodical, scrambled to obey his captain, fingers flying over the controls. The Seeker's engines roared to life, straining against the revitalized ship's strange, almost gravitational pull. Xylar watched in horror as the main view screen showed cracks appearing on the colossal vessel's hull, strained by the monstrous awakening within. Inside the ship, the remaining Unkan squad fought desperately for their lives. They were hopelessly outmatched. The giants, if giants they were, moved with a speed that belied their size, fueled by either rage or blind confusion. Their bodies seemed impervious to the squad's energy weapons, which sparked harmlessly off a thick hide or what looked disconcertingly like armor plating. Zero went down, a giant hand crushing her suit like an insect's shell. The last thing Zaral saw before darkness enveloped him was a massive shadow looming over him, an alien face twisted into a snarl of fury. On the Seeker's bridge, the situation was rapidly deteriorating. Power fluctuated wildly as the monstrous ship they'd nudged awake exerted its full influence, straining their systems and drawing their smaller vessel inexorably closer. "Captain, we're losing control!" Talon cried, sweat beading on his scaled face. Alarms wailed in symphony with the booming groan of stressed metal. Xylar made a split-second decision. Detach emergency shuttle. All hands abandon ship. He wouldn't let his entire crew perish due to his curiosity. Even as despair washed over him, his mind raced. They had to escape, had to warn the Council. This was not a species they could afford to antagonize. Panic erupted on the bridge as crew members scrambled towards the escape pods. Xylar held his position, a captain going down with his ship, even as Talon practically dragged him towards the last remaining pod. As they hurtled away from the Seeker, now held firmly in the grip of the gargantuan vessel, a final agonizing scene played out on the view screen. The ancient ship, fully powered at last, tore itself free of its prison. Xylar could only watch in numb horror as his ship, the pride of the Unkan exploration fleet, was swallowed whole into the alien vessel's maw. When the communications console crackled to life, a single guttural word rasped across the silence, echoing Xylar's own primal terror with chilling clarity. "Intruder?" The escape pod hurtled through space, a fragile speck amidst the vastness. Xylar huddled inside with Talon, their usually composed demeanors shattered. The enormity of what they had encountered pressed down on them like a suffocating weight. "We have to warn the Council." Xylar's voice was a strained whisper, the lingering echo of his captain's authority barely holding on. "They need to know the kind of danger we've stumbled upon." "Do you think they'll believe us?" Talon asked, the doubt heavy in his voice. Never before had the Unkan encountered a species so drastically superior in size and raw power. The tales of giants they had awoken would border on the unbelievable. Xylar ran a shaky hand across his face. "They have to. But first, we need to survive," he said, his gaze fixated on the fading monstrosity in the distance. It was growing smaller now, but the chilling memory of its emergence remained seared into his mind. He knew with absolute certainty that their discovery would send shockwaves throughout the entire Unkan Empire. And beyond. Days turned into a torturous blur of survival within the cramped confines of the pod. They rationed supplies, their voices barely above a whisper as they recounted the brief, brutal encounter with the colossal beings. "How long do you think we have?" Talon asked, the question hanging heavy in the stale air of the pod. Xylar checked the life support readings. "Long enough for a rescue, if we're lucky." His luck recently was anything but even as despair threatened to consume him, the image of his crew perishing within the belly of that gargantuan ship hardened his resolve. The warning had to get out, no matter the cost. Finally, the pod's long-range transmitter sputtered to life, picking up a faint signal from Unkan territory. It was weak, barely a thread, but it was there. Xylar gripped the microphone, his voice thick with urgency. "This is Captain Xylar of the Seeker, requesting immediate assistance." He repeated the message until his voice grew hoarse, praying that someone would hear them. The wait seemed eternal, each passing minute amplifying their isolation and vulnerability. Then, a flicker of hope. A return signal, acknowledging their distress call. Hours later, a rescue vessel materialized, a welcome sight amidst the indifferent infinity of space. Back on Unkan territory, the tale unfolded like a horrific nightmare. Xylar and Talon recounted the events with chilling detail, their broken voices barely conveying the sheer magnitude of what they had witnessed. The council chamber was thick with disbelief and growing fear. Never had they faced an existential threat like this. News of the encounter spread like wildfire through the Unkan territories. Initially met with skepticism, the evidence mounted. Xylar's shredded testimony, the haunting last transmission from the Seeker, the vanishing of an entire advanced vessel. Scientists pored over the scant data, trying to piece together whatever they could about this newly awakened race, but it was like trying to grasp the ocean with bare hands. The revelation was a blow to the Unkan's pride. They, a species that valued knowledge and expansion above all else, had stumbled blindly into an unimaginable power. Fear rippled through their ranks, a stark contrast to their usual composed scientific nature. Yet within the fear, a thread of desolate realization began to take root. They would not remain ignorant prey forever. A clandestine council was formed, composed of the brightest Unkan minds, tasked with analyzing every scrap of information, every theoretical weakness this new threat might possess. The focus of the Unkan shifted, no longer purely about exploration. The race for knowledge turned into a frantic scramble for survival, a survival that now hinged on understanding these sleeping giants. Meanwhile, aboard the vast ship the Unkan called the Expanse, a different awakening occurred. The beings that the intruders had stumbled upon were far more than mere titans. Enhanced reflexes crackled through massive forms. Genetically augmented minds absorbed information at astounding rates, deciphering Unkan comms frequencies in hours where it should have taken years. They weren't just muscle. They were an echo of humanity, evolved and engineered for space, war, and survival. Their leader, Commander Anya Sokolov, paced the newly active bridge. Her eyes held not just the shock of awakening, but the weight of decisions she had been bred to make. "Status!" she barked, her modified voice carrying an authority that cut through the chaos. A symphony of reports filled the bridge, painted in stark strokes. The ship, adrift for centuries, was surprisingly intact. Most humans were in good condition, cryosleep having done its job. And then, the intruders. Small, weak, a technician scoffed. Their weapons were barely an inconvenience. Despite the ease with which they had subdued the Unkan, there was no cruelty in his voice, merely the clinical analysis of a mismatch. Anya shook her head. Their ship. What we know. Images of the Seeker flashed before her, sleek, advanced, yet dwarfed by the Expanse. They were scouts. More will follow. A ripple of unease spread through the bridge. True, the Unkan were no match physically, but the Expanse had been dormant, adrift. Now, however... Anya turned, the light catching the faded tattoo on her neck. A single word. Earth. "Prep the comms," she ordered, a plan forming in her augmented mind. "We have a message to send, and a species to deceive." A veil of deception descended upon the Expanse. Acting on Commander Sokolov's orders, a meticulously crafted facade was erected. The humans feigned technological ignorance, transmitting cleverly coded messages that painted a picture of a salvaged vessel, a crew barely aware of their surroundings. The Unkan, already primed for fear, leaped to conclusions. To their ears, the humans' garbled transmissions spoke of confusion and disarray, a barbaric species clumsily piloting technology far beyond their understanding. The deception was reinforced by strategic displays of brute strength. When the next larger Unkan force approached cautiously, they were met with deliberate displays of power. Humans wrestled massive ship components seemingly without effort, their roars and grunts adding to the impression of a primitive but dangerous species. It was an unsettling but effective pantomime. The Unkan Council, their fears validated, made the fateful decision: containment. While a brave few argued for open contact, the majority saw only one solution to ensure their continued existence. The giants could not be allowed to learn, to adapt, to become what their potential hinted at. They would be misled, misdirected, isolated. A blockade was established around the Expanse, thinly veiled as a protective measure. False intelligence was leaked, enticing tales of riches and resources in distant star systems, expertly baiting the humans' apparent greed and curiosity. Unkan scientists worked tirelessly on countermeasures, scrambling the readings of their own advanced technology, determined to keep the giants blind. Within the Expanse, Anya watched the intricate dance with a grim smile. The humans played their roles with disturbing authenticity, allowing their carefully constructed personas to shield their true capabilities. Their goal was not just survival, but a position of unseen control. Years crept by in this bizarre stalemate. The humans seemed content to explore the gifts the Unkan offered, their forays carefully mapped and monitored by a vast, unseen web of Unkan surveillance. Anya studied their conquerors. They were brilliant, methodical, yet with a curious blindness when it came to anything outside their expansionist desires. This blindness was the key. "It's time for the next step," she announced to her inner circle. The ship was no longer a haven, but a coiled spring. Anya had plans within plans. They weren't just playing at being barbarians anymore. They were forging a legend that would hide the survivors of Earth from the eyes of the galaxy for centuries to come, manipulating events from the shadows, subtly influencing the very civilization that aimed to contain them. Anya's grand design unfolded with the calculated patience of a chess master. The Expanse vanished from Unkan sensors in orchestrated bursts of primitive drive malfunctions, always reappearing just when hope of its destruction flickered. Rumors started to spread, amplified by carefully compromised Unkan communication channels. Tales of the Titan wreck, a gargantuan ship piloted by savage, near-immortal giants, rippled through spacefaring communities. The Unkan, horrified by the stories their own manipulations had wrought, doubled down. False discoveries were planted, ancient derelict vessels, their crews supposedly slaughtered by the monstrous beings of the Expanse. Warnings blared across trading lanes, exaggerating the humans' threat and casting them as a cosmic plague to be avoided at all costs. The galaxy listened. Trade routes shifted. Star systems previously ripe for exploration were now marked with stark warning signs. Titan territory. A burgeoning dread took root, fueled by ghost stories and manufactured evidence. The humans were quarantined, not by military might, but by fear. Yet, as with all carefully laid plans, there were those who looked beyond the obvious. Ambitious pirates, lured by the promise of gargantuan salvage, dared to test the Titan legend. Anya welcomed these incursions. Her humans, trained in brutal ground combat, tore through the invading forces with a ferocity that solidified their monstrous reputation. Survivors, few and broken, fled back into the depths of space, carrying fresh tales of the invincible behemoths lurking at the galaxy's edge. Meanwhile, within the supposed chaos of the Expanse, a different kind of order reigned. Unkan technology was not just salvaged, but reverse-engineered, dissected. Anya, ever mindful of the delicate balance they maintained, allowed only incremental advancements that wouldn't disrupt the image of brutish simplicity the humans projected. It was as much theater as it was technological advancement. Her agents, humans chosen for their adaptability, were planted strategically within various burgeoning civilizations. They became mercenaries, explorers, traders, unremarkable cogs in the grand galactic machine. Through them, Anya's web of influence spread. Nudges here, whispers there, conflicts subtly instigated or quelled, invariably positioning the humans as a terrifying deterrent none dared to provoke. With an unseen hand, Anya Sokolov and the survivors of Earth shaped the galaxy, not from a throne, but from the heart of the terrifying myth they had become. The Unkan, architects of their own deception, remained blissfully unaware of the true power they hid. Humanity had won, not through battle, but by becoming the monster the galaxy needed them to be. Decades became centuries. The legend of the Expanse and its monstrous inhabitants morphed into galactic folklore. Young civilizations were warned about the Titans, their territory becoming a vast no-man's land on star charts. Anya Sokolov became a mere shadow in the Expanse's long history. Her cunning strategy whispered of only in the oldest training programs. Within the confines of the ancient ship, human life continued, a well-oiled machine fueled by Anya's original design. They remained giants, genetically enhanced, but the focus shifted. The Expanse's crew were now researchers, engineers, and tacticians. Their strength was still honed, a necessary deterrent for the rare fool who dared to test their legend, but their minds became their most potent weapon. Unkan's sensors monitored, always watchful, always feeding back a carefully curated reality to their masters. Generations of Unkan scientists came and went, some questioning the continued necessity of the charade, but ultimately, none daring to risk the unimaginable consequences of revealing the truth. Yet, the galaxy evolved, and Anya's descendants, those who inherited the responsibility of maintaining the grand deception, knew its limits. New civilizations arose, bolder and far more technologically advanced than those of Anya's time. It became a constant battle to mask the anachronistic discrepancies of the Expanse without arousing suspicion. Captain Grigor Volkov faced this very dilemma. He watched sensor screens flicker with fresh data, a burgeoning coalition of star systems testing new long-range scanners in an unfortunate proximity to Titan territory. Their signals threatened to cut through the Expanse's carefully maintained cloak. "This grows more complicated by the cycle," Grigor growled to his second, Irena. Unlike her captain, she bore the genetic hallmarks of the original sleeper generation, immense size and augmented physique, yet her eyes held an intellect and cunning worthy of Anya herself. Irena nodded grimly. "They're close, Grigor. Too close. Our mask won't withstand that level of scrutiny. In a few years, they'll deduce the truth." "And then what?" Grigor paced the bridge, a habit starkly contrasted with his towering size. "The Unkan will panic, but these new powers, they may see us as a challenge, not a threat. A challenge we'll ultimately lose," Irena finished for him. "They outnumber us, their technology. We can't fight the whole galaxy." A rare edge of fear tainted her usually calm voice. It was time for a new gambit. Another layer to the deception, something drastic enough to once again reforge their monstrous reputation. "We need," Grigor began, his mind racing, "a reminder." The plan, born from desperation and tempered by centuries of cunning, was audacious in its simplicity. Operation Titanfall, as Irena dubbed it, would be a carefully orchestrated display of calculated brutality designed to shake the coalition to its core. Target selection was critical. They needed a world ripe for plucking, one with enough resources to garner attention but not so heavily defended as to pose a real threat. After weeks of parsing star charts and intercepted transmissions, they found it. Eridu 3, a mining colony lightly defended and teeming with valuable resources. The Expanse moved, not with stealth, but with deliberate, thundering aggression. Old energy weapons deemed too risky to maintain previously were reactivated, their readings easily detected and distorted by the waiting Unkan sensors. It was a beacon of archaic but devastating power, a grim reminder of the supposed savagery the Titans were capable of. Eridu 3 burned, not cleanly, but with the kind of drawn-out destruction that sent ripples of terror through the coalition. The Expanse's human forces descended not as conquerors, but as ravagers, leaving behind scenes of brutal carnage meticulously staged to tell a tale of insatiable greed and bloodlust. Those few who survived were herded back to their ships, traumatized souls to spread the renewed legend of the Titans. The galaxy reeled, the coalition fractured, its members pointing fingers and retreating into their own territories to reassess and reinforce defenses. Fear, that most potent of motivators, washed over burgeoning empires like a chilling tide. Back at the Unkan home system, a wave of relief rippled through the council chambers. Their plan had worked. Humanity was contained once more, their monstrous reputation firmly cemented. For now. Within the Expanse, however, there was no celebration. Grigor and Irena stood before the main view screen, the receding wreckage of Eridu 3 a stark testament to the terrible choices they had been forced to make. "We bought ourselves time," Grigor murmured, the weight of his decisions heavy upon him. "Time, yes," Irena agreed, "but at a cost. We're further from integrating with the galaxy than we ever were." "Anya wouldn't have approved," Grigor said, the name of their founding commander hanging heavy in the air. Irena met his gaze. "Anya couldn't have foreseen how the galaxy would develop. We adapt to survive. That was always the plan, wasn't it?" Grigor nodded, the grim truth settling upon his shoulders. Anya's plan had saved humanity, but its legacy had grown increasingly twisted. The humans of the Expanse were prisoners of their own myth, bound to the role of monsters the galaxy both needed and feared. Their future was uncertain, a path shrouded in lies and the constant threat of discovery. It was a far cry from the integration Anya had envisioned, yet it was the only path they had left. Centuries wore on. The legend of the Titans, monstrous and undying, became an unshakable part of the galactic tapestry. Whispers turned into cautionary tales passed between starfaring generations, ensuring vast swaths of space remained unexplored. But legends have a tendency to shift, to evolve with the changing tides of the galaxy. In the underbelly of space lanes, a new tale began to stir. Word spread of the Ebony, a shadowy organization rumored to possess forbidden knowledge about Titan territory. They peddled relics, scavenged technology allegedly snatched from the Expanse itself. Those desperate enough, or greedy enough, sought their services, hoping to unlock the secrets of the giants. It was, of course, another layer of the Expanse's deception. Relics were forged, technology carefully leaked, all designed to paint the picture of a reckless but ultimately disorganized species. Where there was disarray, there was a sliver of potential opportunity. Zathara, a bold and ambitious captain from an upstart trade empire, was one such individual who chose to gamble on the unknown. "Think, Zathara," her advisor cautioned. "The legends, they speak of annihilation." Zathara's predatory smile flashed in the dim light of her ship's bridge. "Legends are made to be broken. The Ebony, they're our key. They know how to navigate Titan space, how to face the beasts." She trailed off, eyes gleaming, "and how to profit from them." The lure of the forbidden proved too potent. Through exorbitant fees and backroom deals, Zathara and her crew acquired an assortment of dubious artifacts and contradictory star charts, all courtesy of the Ebony's meticulously crafted lore. It was a fool's errand, designed to perpetuate the myth and to lead those brave or foolish enough to their doom. The Expanse lay in wait. Sensor networks hummed, picking up the approaching signature long before Zathara's sleek vessel breached the outer boundaries of Titan territory. This intrusion was different. Planned. Calculated. It presented a new and dangerous variable. On the Expanse's bridge, Captain Alexei Romanov watched the ship's approach. Unlike Grigor or Anya before him, he was of Earthborn stock, a cold strategist raised on stories of the deception. "Bold or suicidal," he mused aloud, considering the blinking icon on the screen. "They're armed to the teeth," Irena, now his trusted advisor, commented. "Unlike the pirates and scavengers we've faced before." "They've come prepared for a real fight," Alexei agreed, a note of begrudging respect in his voice. "This isn't some smash-and-grab operation. This is about knowledge, about challenging the legend." He frowned, a cold feeling settling in his gut. If Zathara and her ilk succeeded, the carefully constructed facade they'd upheld for centuries could crumble. And so, the hunter became the hunted, not with overwhelming force, but with deadly precision. Zathara's ship found itself herded, not towards the Expanse, but towards the chaotic heart of an asteroid field, laced with unstable remnants of a dead star. Sabotage, masked as primitive, navigational mistakes, nudged them into a deadly course. The battle was swift and brutal, a testament to Zathara's tactical brilliance and the desperation of her crew, but ultimately they were outmaneuvered and outmatched. As her ship spiraled towards a fiery demise, a final chilling transmission pierced the Expanse's communication channels, shattering the comfortable illusion of chaos the humans had so carefully maintained. "They lied," Zathara's voice rasped, thick with fury and realization. "Not savages, planners, liars. The galaxy must know." Her final words were lost amidst the roar of imploding reactors. The message hit the Expanse's crew like a depth charge. Their centuries of meticulous deception were unraveling with terrifying speed. Alexei and Irena exchanged grim looks. Zathara's words held the weight of an irrefutable truth. For too long, the galaxy had danced to their carefully orchestrated tune, but change was coming. The cracks in the Titan legend were widening, and soon, nothing would be left but the terrifying reality. "We can't bury this," Irena said, the tension in her usually steady voice palpable. "The Ebony, They won't be able to suppress the truth forever, especially not from Zathara's backers. Then we adapt, Alexei countered, the spark of a defiant plan igniting in his eyes. It was a desperate gamble, a last roll of the dice before their carefully crafted world came crumbling down. Across the galaxy, news of Zathara's expedition and its fiery end spread like wildfire. Whispers of cunning, of a vast conspiracy painted over the usual tales of monstrous giants, began to stir the galactic pot. The Ebony, sensing the changing wind, vanished, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a lingering, chilling unease. But from this chaos, the Expanse would seize opportunity. They couldn't hide anymore, not forever, but perhaps they could rewrite the rules of the game. A single, calculated transmission cut through the static, carried not by panicked Unkan channels, but broadcast directly for the entire galaxy to hear. It was not the roar of a monster, but the calm, measured tone of Captain Alexei Romanov, commander of the once legendary Titan vessel, the Expanse. This is a message to the civilized races of the galaxy. His voice was strong, holding an undeniable authority. The legends are not entirely false. We, the descendants of Earth, do exist. We are evolved, adapted, survivors of a war that almost extinguished humanity. He paused, the silence ringing with unspoken implications. We sought sanctuary, found it in pretending to be that which you feared, he continued, the truth laid bare as a challenge. You chose to contain the monster you created, rather than face the reality before you. The galaxy held its breath. Here was the Titan, speaking not in grunts of violence, but the language of diplomacy, of accusation. It was a gamble, a confession designed to throw the galactic order into disarray. We are not the mindless brutes of your tales. We are scientists, warriors, leaders. We will emerge from the shadows, not to wage the war you have long dreaded, but to offer a choice, Alexei declared, his tone shifting from confession to proposition. Will you cower in fear of the unknown, or embrace the potential of our combined civilizations? The time of the Titan myth is over. The time of humanity is at hand. The transmission ended, leaving a deafening silence in its wake. The galaxy teetered on a precipice of its own making. The monstrous Titan of legend now stood revealed, not asking for dominion, but offering collaboration. It was a pivotal moment, a chance for peace or a catalyst for a devastating conflict of unimaginable proportions. Whatever the choice, the era of hiding was at an end.